So let's dive into some of the details. The first use case I'm going to show you is to basically, yeah, I've already shown you a little bit about the chatbot. Let's look at the connector catalog. The connector catalog has a bunch of different library data connectors that are easy for you to onboard. Some of these are just open data sources which you can get access to without any sort of API key or any additional credentials and so forth. And those are the easiest to kind of, for you to install. If some of these, for instance, if you look at Stripe, Stripe is a financial transactions connector. You need a Stripe credential, for your particular company or you yourself for you to see your data, your data. Obviously you won't be able to see other folks' financial data. You sort of have to put that API key in, and then you can see your data. So just to get the ball rolling, I'm going to uh, look at GitHub issues. GitHub issues is basically connects to the GitHub repository, and for a given owner, GitHub is organized as a bunch of owners who own repos or repositories of code or other artifacts. And so, it's a vast repository, and it's an open API thing where anyone can query can go get the information about how many issues there are, what is the title of the issue, etc. So these are all the issues that have been created for the repos of the particular owner in the particular repo. So supposing you want to you're interested in this data set, all you have to do is install it. So you can install it here, or you can install it from the main dialog by clicking on install. I'll show you how that works. So here I'm just going to install it right here. So it wants to confirm that you want to install this connector. Go ahead and say yes, and you can dispose of this particular dialog. I was just going to mention that you could also have installed this by clicking that specific connector and say install on your instance. So basically, installation means that you take something from the library and put it into your connectors. Now, if we go to my connectors, you should be able to see GitHub issues, and there it is. It is available. One of the interesting things here is you can just run the connector. You can go, okay, it's here. Because we have AI available, this thing will find plausible owners and repo names to sort of run this thing. So you can test the connector even without you knowing who the owners and repos are, in case you don't have that information. You just want to test it out. So you could go directly to where the GitHub test run is going on. So this thing will find some plausible inputs to plug into the two required columns there. So here it's using, if you look here, right, it's saying the owner is Microsoft and the repo is VS Code. It just happened to select those two as the sample inputs to test out the GitHub connector, and you see the actual real-time data. This is what makes TriggerWare a very interesting technology for pulling live data, because you see, and you can see all the columns that it has pulled in, and you can sort of do that. And so you were able to run the query just on a sample input, Microsoft and VS Code. Now, what if you wanted to do your own thing? So if you want to create your own query, you can do that. I'm going to click on create query, and let's call this a sample. Every query has a name because we automatically store it in case you want to make it into a trigger or something. So I'll call it sample 2 or something like that. And so here I'm going to say find. So you notice here, I'm not using any formal language. I'm just typing in English, and whatever I type in English will get translated into SQL. A key part of TriggerWare is that you do SQL over everything, but you don't need to know SQL to operate the platform. You can, if you want, put your query in SQL, but that's not what we'll do here. So find GitHub issues for owner Karpati repo nano GPT, for instance. So this is a particular owner. Karpati is a famous AI guy from OpenAI and now elsewhere. Repo is his repo is Nano GPT. It's one of the most popular ones. So if you are interested in that one, now we're going to look at that specific one. I'm just trying to show you queries are completely open-ended. You can plug in whatever required parameters you want. The owner and the repo are required. And now it will run the same connector, but on the specific inputs that you've suggested in your sample query. Now, running a query, right, is not as simple as just looking up a Google search or whatever where the results come back instantaneously. All TriggerWare connectors are connecting to the real-time data sources. So, you will always see it take a little time because it's going over the network to go pull the data from the APIs. And on occasion, it will also take a little time to do the correlation and so forth. So here's an interesting thing that you see. And notice that I had put in everything in English. So there's my query. This is what TriggerWare translates that into through the AI. It translates everything into SQL, and the query is executed, getting us the actual data. And you will notice that these dates are all current. I mean, these are the last issue is 2026, 617, etc. And so these things are available to you. And as you move, this thing actually gives you a link back to the real data, and you should be able to copy that and go put that in a web browser to go see the actual issue, etc. So this gives you an idea how to query any connector that you have. You can query it simply by prompting the engine to get the data that you want. Notice that there's nothing technical here. There's nothing hard about what it is. You, of course, have to know the data. You have to know that the GitHub data requires an owner and a repo, but that anybody who operates with GitHub would know that.